All right, everybody's audio is good. Testing, testing. I sound okay? All right.
Yep.
Oh, go.
All this waiting and still nothing.
All right, we're juggling. All right, well, and here we go. Welcome to episode number 24 of You Had Me at Halo, where we talk about one of gaming's most storied franchises. So today we are on the precipice of the next chapter in Halo, and we are here to talk about a pretty exciting time. So I know that a lot of our audience here has received emails, not everybody, and our condolences for those that have to wait. But we want to dive in. There's a lot to dive in since we last spoke. So let's get this show going and introduce the team. First off, I am going to introduce a first-timer to the show, a guest who is a guest on the show, but he is also a team member now, a new team member for XboxEra, and that is our Forebear. Welcome, Forebear, aka Austin. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, guys. How are y'all doing?
Really
awesome.
Good.
Awesome.
Really tired.
Yeah, it's been a long week for you, Jesse.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jesse's had a few things to do this week. So yeah, Forebear, we'll come back to you. You know, I definitely want the community to get to know you a little bit. I know you're working on some big things for the site right now in regards to Halo, and you've been doing that for a while before joining us. And I think it'd be interesting just to take a few minutes to discuss that. But before I come back to you, let's go ahead and introduce the rest of today's team. Next up, we got Spartan Mike, aka Mr. Kage Maru. How's it going, man?
Hey, friends. No, I'm good. I'm pumped. Some good stuff today. So looking forward to talking about it with you fine fellas.
Awesome. Next up, we got Spartan Jesse, aka Mr. Don Cabeza. Say hello, Jesse.
Hello. Omno just went live. Go watch it after this, and we've got 2 more coming tomorrow.
That is Jesse's. I've been doing reviews and you know, not sleeping a lot, boys, for anybody who's wondering. Next up, we got Spartan Daniel, aka Mr. Nadian. How's it going, Daniel?
Pretty freaking good. Really excited to dig in some Halo.
Awesome. Next up, finally, it is going to be your host today, Spartan One Bad Mother, aka Abe. I guess I'll reveal that to everybody now that I'm on camera. I've been holding back on that for a while. So let's go ahead and first I want to come back to you, Forebear. Just talk a little bit about you in terms of, you know, as a Halo content creator. You know, take a few minutes and kind of tell everybody what you've been doing and, you know, what you're looking forward to doing here with XboxEra.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a Halo fan since day one. Basically, I was snuck to a Best Buy the night that the original Xbox was released by my eldest cousin Alex. We picked up Halo and Project Gotham Racing and played a ridiculous amount of Halo that night. Me, him, and some of his siblings. So been playing it since day one. It's been a fun experience. I ran my own Halo podcast and YouTube channel back in 2014, 2015 called Reclaimer Hub. The podcast was Reclaimer Radio. That was short-lived, but a lot of fun, and I've been looking forward to an opportunity similar to that again. So last May, it was actually May the 4th, I put up my first video under the Forebear rebrand name, however you want to call it, I guess. And it saw a good little bit of success pretty quickly, actually. I net my first 1,000 subscribers in the first 60 days. I accrued around, I want to say it was like 45,000 views on my first 4 or 5 videos. I was very, very lucky because I was making stuff that no one else was making at the time, talking about things no one else was talking about at the time. So found a lot of luck and fortune there. And then the gameplay reveal happened last year, and interest dropped off hard, unfortunately. So I saw, yeah. I saw a pretty sharp drop in engagement, so I tried to pursue other things and make content for other games and things like that. And it honestly, it hurt the channel more than it helped it. But in the last 6 months, I've seen a little bit more growth again, and have been streaming on Twitch a lot, and hit affiliate around the same time as all that happened last year as well on there. And John asked me if I'd like to make Halo content for an audience that was bigger than my own and also for my own, and I thought that it was a win-win situation. So he invited me to come and join the team. So here I am now, helping to make some cool Halo stuff for the XboxEra crew.
Yep, and I've got a sneak peek on something you're working on that's going to be really cool, especially for. Well, I won't spoil anything. I'll let you kind of talk about that. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing some of the things that you bring. I think you bring some interesting insights, and like you mentioned, things that are not always covered, by everybody, because a lot of times it's easy for us to all kind of repeat the same stuff. But Halo is a really, really deep franchise, and we've learned even just from each other over the past. I guess it's been a year now, right, that we've been doing this, that, what Halo means to people is different. And whether you want to dive into the lore, there's a lot of depth there, or it's the gameplay, there's a lot of intricacies. And that'd be something that'd be really interesting to continue to explore, because, Halo, a lot of times we don't even understand why it feels good. Why does Halo feel different than everything else, right? And when you kind of really delve into it, I think once Forebear, I think you're going to do a good job kind of talking about that, with some of the upcoming pieces. But you kind of listen to that, and it's why hasn't every other developer picked up on this? And it's not that easy, right? It's not that easy to kind of balance this and balance each and every weapon you throw in there, each and every move you do in there. And as we learned over time, not every time just little tweaks can bring people in or push them away from the community. Yeah. So that's going to actually tie into some of our topics today. It'd be interesting. I do have to ask you, what is your favorite Halos?
So I can just real quick run off, no explanation. I think a drive-by opinion is the best way to do it. So Halo 3, Halo 5, Halo 2, Halo 1, ODST, 4, and then Reach. Okay. If we're strictly talking multiplayer experiences.
Awesome.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Campaign, which is just as important to me, if not more. The order is slightly different there. Halo 5 goes down a few pegs. Halo 4 comes up quite a few pegs.
Yep.
But largely, that's what it is, and I'll leave it at that.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's really great to hear, Forebear. And like I said, I look forward to continuing to see what you bring to the team and share with everybody in terms of insights. Now, I do want to transition over into the tech preview, and I think that's why a lot of our audience is here to kind of really. There's been a lot of excitement. I don't know if anybody's been kind of paying attention to your Twitter feeds. There's been a lot of the word Halo kind of has been popping up a lot more than as we kind of alluded to earlier than it was a year ago.
And number 4 on trending last night.
Yeah, it was trending yesterday.
And in a positive way, right? Like, you even look at the videos, they're getting a lot more thumbs up than down, which is really interesting, especially since it does, as we talked about in a previous show, they are trying to thread this needle between the modern and the classic, and I feel like they are so far doing a pretty good job. I think it's an impossible task to make everybody happy, right? But I think they are getting a lot of the audience to buy in and be excited about what's coming up, and that is what we want to see. So everybody here's got their invites, right? Going around here. Did anybody here not? Okay.
Apologies to Ursel. He's not here, and he doesn't have an invite.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I do wonder tomorrow, will we just see people getting, the email never made it through, but now you log into Waypoint and it shows that you're in. That's my hope for them.
I mean, they said in the video today that they're still rolling them out.
There are
you
people
can get
in the
them.
server who just got them.
Yeah.
It takes a week.
Well, and they were clear too that it wasn't like they sent so many so many emails at once, and then did more another time, and then more another time. It was just they sent so many at once that there were issues with trying to send so many at once.
Yep.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. They did mention today that not everybody did get in that wanted to get in, and that they are going to continue to have. They're going to continue to have more of these, and over time they're going to get bigger and bigger. So hopefully everybody does get pulled in. This one is going to be the smallest, just from a from a scope, from the user base, because they want to start off small. So that is something for everybody to keep in mind. But I am curious, like going around, what is, based on what you know right now, what are you looking forward to testing out the most this weekend? What's got you the most excited, or I guess maybe not excited about that? What we know this is supposed to be? Mike, I see you wanted to talk, so go ahead.
Basically putting the AI through the paces. Like, I'm most interested in seeing how good this multiplayer AI is, and
It's thinking.
yeah, exactly. And like, I'm really interested because the way that they talk about it, being Marines to ODST and recruit, and then all the way up to Spartans. I had that order kind of off, but still, the top with Spartans. The fact that they'll grapple hook you and hit you with the sword and have that type of, like, they properly use the equipment like that. That really excites me. Like, when it comes to Halo, and how many, I know it's like a running joke at this point about my love for the Sandbox, but a lot of that is centered around the AI, and and if they can have as much of a dynamic AI in the multiplayer, that, like, I just want good multiplayer AI that's not trash, really. I mean, so that's kind of my, like, obviously there's the mechanics and just seeing all that stuff, but the AI is going to be a big thing that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, and you are like the tech guy in the team. For anybody who doesn't know, we'll talk. Well, with Daniel, I'm sorry.
He's one of them.
I had a question.
I'm one of
yeah.
them.
Well, I was going to mention, Mike's Parallel Pixels. He does take a look at games and looks at the technology, talks to developers about that stuff. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to get your technical perspective after this weekend, both about the AI and other things. Obviously we're gonna get a chance to feel the graphics, the frame rates, that consistency there, and they did talk today about some of that stuff.
Yeah.
But Daniel, I know you wanted to pipe in there. What was it you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, kind of as I guess if you want to call me Mike's protege, it's, we kind of talked about it before jumping into the podcast, but the AI modeling, I think, is going to drastically improve after the first tech preview because of how much it's big data, right? So they're going to be taking that and then applying it similar to what we saw with Forza. And if you've played Forza anything past 5 on the highest difficulties for the drivatars, I mean, it is a vastly different game than any other racing game, because the AI is so, it's built off of player feedback, so it's so much more aggressive, more competitive. There's no drive-by lines, and so I'm really hoping we see some of that in here. Like, I know that it's going to be us versus bots, but it'd be cool if the next preview we get a mix of 2 bots, 2 humans, 2 bots, 2 humans, so that we could see how they drive, because that's going to be ultimate.
That's yep.
Taking us back to our ODST playthrough, right? You're going the wrong way.
Really, any Halo fan that's been playing Halo since Halo 2 knows about the AI and their driving capabilities.
Yeah, their driving capabilities are almost as bad as Mike's. But Jesse, anything different that you're like hoping to kind of glean from this weekend's preview?
Just how the guns feel in comparison to 5, what they changed, what they didn't change, what the new ones feel like. That Heatwave looked damn cool. Is it a Covenant weapon, or is it a human weapon? Is it Forerunner weapon? Is it a hybrid of them? I'm interested in what the backstory is on that as a lore nerd.
Yeah.
For the most part, it's really how does the movement feel compared to 5? Is it really that half step between 3 and 5? Because there still are thrusters, but they're only a pickup. You don't have them all the time. So you have to choose. Do I want a thruster? Do I want a grapple shot? Do I want a drop wall? Do I want the
I didn't know
threat detector? So
I didn't know thrusters were still in.
I don't think thrusters are in.
You thought wrong, because they were in the UI today.
I saw threat sensor in the UI today. I did not see thrusters.
Threat sensor, drop wall, thruster, and grapple shot were all in the key bindings when they went through them.
Oh, nice.
Really?
Huh.
Oh, well, I have some. That's going to be interesting. I want to come back to this. I do want to first get Forebear, some of your thoughts on what you're looking forward to testing out this weekend. What are you looking to try to break, and what are you excited about?
It's funny because a lot of what Mike and what Jesse had to say about hyper specifics with Sandbox is a lot of what I'm looking forward to playing with. During the presentation today, they showed some of the weapon drills and things like that, and it looks like the battle rifle is a 5-shot kill weapon and not a 4-shot kill weapon, which would be only the second time in the franchise's history that releases in that state. So I'm curious to see if that's the case. Things like that. I'm honestly excited to see exactly what role the commando fills. I'm excited to see if it's a AR meets a DMR in a way that it completely eliminates the need for the DMR to exist in the Sandbox. Not that it ever needed to exist in the Sandbox, but I am very excited. I am very excited to just get in and break some weapons. And I already have a fun idea to go in and buy a customization item, go into the customization menu, put it on, and do that back and forth until something breaks. So just break things as hard as I can.
Nice. Yeah, and those are some good points too. And I think that something that we all need to remember is, even if we go back to some of the Halo 5 betas, like from the feedback, they buffed some things, they changed some things before the game launched, and then even after the game launched, they tweaked things as well. Like I actually wasn't a big fan of how they tweaked the BR long term from where that started, but we know that they're going to continue to tweak these things. So just because it's a 5-shot kill right now doesn't mean it's going to be a 5-shot kill when this game launches, whenever that is. And I think you guys pretty much took all my ideas, but I am definitely looking forward to see how the weapons feel. I am a pistol guy, so I definitely want to see how that feels compared to to me, that's what made Halo 5's multiplayer, is how good that fit in with everything else and how well it was balanced. So I am curious to see if that is going to still remain to be as as important or as balanced as it was there. And also to what you guys were talking about, Mike and Daniel, with the AI. I think there's more to this AI thing, I believe, than just filling in when there's not gamers there. Because we know this is going to be a big community, things like that. I do think this is going to be a lot more important. But actually, I think that might be a good time to transition. So let's talk about that. We are about to start this preview, and I think traditionally we're used to it being player versus player. And that's not the case here. I've heard some grumblings about that from some out in the communities, and I think I'm more aligned with Mike and Daniel in terms of being excited, curious about what this could mean for the game. But I would like to turn it back over to the group here and see what's your thoughts about this being part of Halo. And I guess you can go beyond that if you'd like to, but I'll reach out to you first this time, Daniel. Like, what's your thoughts about the AI aspect, the fact that we are facing bots?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, right? I mean, it's exciting because, let me back up. First, it's important for people to remember this is a tech preview. They specified that this is not a beta, and there's a reason for that. It's this is as much a stress test for their systems as it is for us to provide feedback, as it is for us to get our hands on it. And so in this case, the AI is there because, like we talked about before we started, it's basically doubling the resource hit on each server, on the dedicated servers. So it's a great way to stress test their systems. But bigger and longer term, I think there's a lot of complexities that this can help. Like we're basically training the AI, right? So
Mhm.
so they're receiving feedback even without our saying so, because they're seeing the inputs, they're seeing how we react and how the AI reacts to our situations. And so ultimately, I think this is going to, especially with their big open AI push that they've got that exclusive
Mhm.
contract with OpenAI with, and with machine learning and everything else that they're going to be tying into their systems going forward. I think this is just a great way. I joke I use the Dreamcast tagline, right? It's thinking, and it's really like this is the first chance that Halo is really going to take advantage of a system like that, where there's actually machine learning modeling going into the AI. It's going to improve. It's going to get better. And the real question for me is how they're going to, is this going to feed into campaign? Is this going to
Mhm.
feed into, are they going to have different difficulty or scenarios for the academy, or for whatever the Spartan versus X mode is, where they've talked about us being able to use our Spartans. So there's so much to this that, for me, it's super exciting. I can understand people, um, who wanted to do 4v4 with their buddies, and I can understand the disappointment there. But really, again, it's important to keep in mind this is a tech review, so this is just as much they're testing their back end, their as much as their front end. And I don't know. I think it's great. I think it's going to be exciting, and I'm expecting some weird AI behaviors for the first run.
Yeah, it was interesting. Oh, go ahead. Who is jumping in next?
No, I was just going to say, I mean, it's important to keep in mind that, like, they want to, I'm sure they want to get AI right, so that it makes sense to put that first, to give them the most time to tweak it, to optimize it, to take this data. Because, in another part of the video today, they openly admitted that they're not going to be able to fix everything, even found in the first preview for launch. And even though you can say that that's kind of concerning in ways, but on the other flip side, at least they're being honest and upfront about it. And so just this wouldn't be this. I wouldn't be surprised if this was not the only one that had AI, like the flight. I can see us having flights with other, or AI in other flights before launch, just to make sure that they have as much feedback and data as possible.
Yeah, and something to kind of bring up too for people that aren't really aware within the Halo community, and I don't. This is probably not an area that people who are way into Halo maybe invest a lot of time in. But last year Microsoft had a GameStack event, and they talked a lot about reinforcement learning. At that time, they were working with Ninja Theory. They were actually using Bleeding Edge as an example, rip for Bleeding Edge. But to me, what was important there wasn't really Bleeding Edge. It was what they were trying to do with it, with how they were trying to use that game and replicate human behavior and continue to take that data and then and then eventually get it to act the way your teammates would act. And so there's going to be, I think there's going to be a process with that. Anybody who's ever worked in machine learning or worked in AI, knows that stuff iterates over time. The thing I would stress is that Halo has always found a way with its classics to set a bar in some sort of fashion, which we haven't seen as much in the last couple with 343, but it looks like they are trying to get back to that. And you think about the original Halo, just how it brought FPS to consoles the way they were on PCs, and then maybe even better in some regards. And then with Halo 2, the matchmaking. 3 was all about the being able to create stuff in the Forge mode. And I think that, to me, this thing, and it's not just a 343 focus, it is really a Microsoft focus, and they are now invested in the gaming and tying in that stuff. And where the possibilities get exciting is the kind of game modes you might be able to create out of this, the how that's going to impact single player. Now it's going to, I think a lot of times when we think about it, we think about what AI has always been, and it's always kind of stunk. It's never been that great, right? Like when you think about it in most games, when you have bots, they're usually just brain dead. They're not that fun to fight. I know that the goal is to get beyond that, to get to a point where they mimic human reaction as close as possible. With the amount of data they now pull into these games, the amount of data they're pulling into the servers, and they can continue to follow the patterns of people. And I think you're going to start to see an evolution of what we've seen with Drivatars and Forza, and that's going to start to become a lot more sophisticated. That is exciting. It might bore some of our audience, but I think it's very exciting, not just for Halo, but really for gaming in general. And I think this is one of those things that we might start to see, just like as we saw Halo do things that other games kind of copied or took with them over time. I think this might be another time where they start to set the bar and use it. And so I would expect a lot of the data they're going to get from this to actually have some impact on the game in the future. So
and the future
so that is
of Boston Dynamics and their murder bots when they all come for us.
Yeah, but
powered by Halo Infinite.
I'm so excited about our murderous future robots.
Yeah, they are going to get good enough to do that. So Jesse or Forebear, any other kind of things you want to add to like what we've said about the AI aspect of it before we kind of move on to some other topics?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I'm extremely hopeful for, that whatever learnings and things like that they pick up, building these bots for multiplayer and creating fun and engaging ways to, challenge a player. I really hope it's something that finds its way into other aspects of the game, be it a more engaging, typical fight within the campaign spaces, things like that. I'd love to see Firefight return at some point in the future as well, and a heavily expanded version of Firefight at that. So hopefully this is laying some of the groundwork for things like that.
Yeah,
that's actually funny that he mentioned that, because I was just going to ask of whether or not you guys think that this AI development is going to help the Marines in the campaign. Like, obviously, I think the Covenant or the Banished here and the Prometheans, they have their own set of AI. Like, human AI just wouldn't work for them just because of different races and classes and stuff within it. But, like, your Marine AI, I wonder if they can take the Marine level AI in the campaign, or I'm sorry, in the multiplayer, and apply that in the campaign so that they aren't as bad as in things like with driving and stuff. So
I think that's what I was alluding to when I was talking about campaign injection, because I mean, the possibilities now between their new learning model, between their partnership with OpenAI, and the fact that every server has additional machine learning hardware in it too. Like, the sky's the limit. No flight sim, pun intended.
To Marines Gandhi hopping and strafe crouching and all that fun stuff against elites.
Yeah, a lot, and I would expect, actually, to your point there, Mike, I think you're going to start seeing those Marines actually evolve over time too in the game, even the single player. We know that Microsoft has no issues going back to old games and bringing new technology, right? We've seen that with the frame rates. We saw that with going to 4K. As they're going to start focusing on this, I wouldn't be surprised to see them continue to update that game even in the single player. And it's getting it's becoming more of a trend anyways in the industry to tweak things, to balance them within the campaigns, not just the multiplayer anymore. So everything is kind of gas these days. But is there anything we kind of missed on that? Forebear, I know you threw out like a quick thing here that did say it may not only be bots at the very end of this, right? I didn't get a chance to read that. We might have some PvP towards the end
if
of the
they
play.
hit their goals for what they're looking for. So they want to get like a certain amount of data, and late on Sunday, they're like, if we hit everything and we've got it, we'll open up 4v4. It is kind of broken. There's also probably a reason why, because in this build, they said you're going to have some issues where one person hangs, and then you start the match and it's 4v3. And you're going to run into things like that, sorry. So that's why it'll just be a very small part at the end if they can do it.
Okay. Well,
I think it's important to remember too, like if they do decide to turn that on, just as like a way to set expectations for other Halo fans, is like this build is 2 months old and this build was purpose built with the idea of like, hey, we're testing bots, not PvP. So if it's broken, like it's reasonable.
The people on our forums that are already saying these shadows look
oh my
terrible.
god, these shadows! The shadows look great, and like maybe
anyone from the forums,
right?
If you're watching. Dan and I moderate a ton. Mike moderates some. Abe moderates some. If you start complaining about like the graphics or the performance in this thing and you don't shut up about it, I'll probably ban you.
And if you didn't get an invite.
Yeah, it's one thing to like express an opinion, but if you're gonna do it ad nauseum, then that's not like you got
expectation for what a tech test is.
Yeah, especially one that's a couple months old.
That's our XboxEra forum preview, you guys. So come on over and we'll talk about it there. So
we welcome everyone.
All right, so we do have a lot of topics, so I do want to try to transition us. And one of the other things that we saw today were some aspects of the gameplay as they related to the Sandbox. Specifically, they did talk a little bit about the mark system and then grenade hit markers. So let's talk about that. So last week we actually had they revealed the changes to the mark system, and we didn't have a show, so I want to make sure we go back and touch on it. I know they touched on it again today, and we got to see some details of what that is. So I think there's a little bit more context to that. So let's go ahead and kind of dig in on that. Who here wants to kind of lead on the mark system? I know we have a lot of thoughts on how this might affect the balance. And Forebear, I see you nodding your head. Let's start with you and see what you kind of think.
The mark system is something that every game that I play, especially competitive FPS games, like obviously Destiny is a hyper competitive FPS game, but Halo specifically, it's one of those things that I wanted to see in any competitive game that I play, because games like Apex, not obviously introducing it originally, but introducing it in a way that is so universally helpful. Exactly. Thank you, Daniel.
Kind of moving away from
it's something that I was hoping would eventually happen. Maybe not at launch, but eventually, right? So to see it in action today, to see that there are XP and point rewards and medals specifically for calling things out, like, hey, if you let your team know, hey, I saw an enemy in house on Bazaar, then you get rewarded for pointing those things out to your team. It seemed like an extremely useful tool, the tiny little bit that we got to see it today, and I'm excited to see what the full birth of that looks like. I'm excited to see weapons being pointed out on the map, like, hey, I might not have comms. Maybe I'm watching my two nieces, so I can't yell on a microphone, but I can at least point out to my friends that there's a sniper across the map that I can see from where I'm standing.
Yeah.
There was a huge improvement in Battlefield 5 from the old Battlefield games, where it was just Doritos above everyone, no matter what, you were always spotted. Instead, it took, I have to see you, and I mark you, and then you get marked for a little while, or I have certain abilities I can mark you, like the threat detector can do. And that's a much better, more skill-based version for a mark system, along with just saying that something's up in this area with the press of a button being super useful, no matter what.
It seemed like there was some semblance of a system similar to that in the gameplay that we saw today, where if you first engaged with an enemy player, you would just see the enemy player with the red outline, and once you dealt damage to each other for a moment, there was a red diamond that would appear above their head. It wasn't any larger than the friendly indicators that are above your teammates' heads, so it seems like they're really pulling inspiration from just about any other big FPS in the industry right now.
If you mark someone and they get killed, you get a small point bonus for it, just like in Battlefield. It's just it's a smart way to set things up.
Do I hold this and wait for that final?
Now we did hear some complaint. I think
Sorry.
you guys
we're going to show a little more gameplay.
I didn't realize that I had the game audio playing from the video that we're doing now. My bad.
But once this wraps up,
I do want to talk about some of the impressions from the community regarding the mark system, and I think you guys brought up some good points, some positives to it, and to be candid about it, I as somebody who plays a lot with I put in over
loved every
2,000 hours.
expression.
Obviously, my friends
Hasn't always been the most powerful
weren't
gun in the
always
game, but it's
available,
always
and
been
so you play with the
interesting to
community without mics a lot of the time because people don't, socialize anymore. We know that. It's just the way the world is. And so, but communication is a huge part of the game. Now, I did hear some feedback regarding, concerns that this might make the multiplayer too sweaty. What is your thoughts about that? Does anybody have like any, agreement there or even pushback, I guess? Like when it comes to whether this will actually change the feel of Halo. What are you guys thinking?
I don't.
No, I think
we're all in agreement.
I mean, you can easily agree. You can easily ignore it. I mean,
yeah, or just like grenade hit markers are something that are disabled in competitive play. If it really proves to be that big of a hindrance, like I'm sure 343 have the tools in place to take it out.
Exactly.
They know the only way to satisfy everyone is to literally have playlists for everyone with the rule sets that work for everyone, and they still won't get everyone, but that's the only way they can get most of them.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to talk about the customizations here soon. I think that's going to be a good tie-in to that. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I feel like in many regards, it actually reduces the sweatiness of the game because even if you are playing with friends, a lot of times I like to just get on with friends, and it's not about, we're not trying to go to some professional championship. We're getting on because we like to play Halo and we like to kind of talk to each other, and so having a way that, when people aren't in the mood to call out everything, right? When we're just kind of casually playing, that just makes it really easy to basically, or just yell out, "Hey, sniper," and just kind of just highlight the guy, right? And so you just run over to where the guy's sniping you from, rather than trying to, memorize the maps, especially if you get some people in there that haven't really been, they don't know all the call outs. You bring in a new person.
Hey, I hate to interrupt you there, man, but it feels exactly what this system is made for. Halo's had the on radar locations since I could be wrong. I feel like Halo 5 probably introduced them, or Halo 2 Anniversary did, one of those two. But the ping system is going to help new players learn what these callouts are and things like that. I feel like it may make some aspects of the game just a tiny little bit sweatier, but if anything, it's going to help with readability. It's going to help with accessibility in moment-to-moment gameplay. I think it's silly to say that it's going to make the game harder for new players or anything like that.
Yeah, same here. At the end of the day, we know that it's just going to that aspect will come down to matchmaking, and sometimes you just get a crew of people that are calling out everything and your crew's not, and that's just the way it's always been when you go on there and you play by yourself. So I think this will actually help balance it.
Go ahead, I mean, if anything, it can promote teamwork and stuff, because there's plenty of people that either don't want to talk or don't feel like talking at that moment, but you can still contribute something in a way of teamwork and communication. And it's, to me, I see it as nothing but a positive. Maybe it makes it a little bit more sweaty if you can't just ignore it, but it's only going to happen when on things that you're visually able to see to begin with. So you can only take in so much of the map and what what's going on at once, and it just I see it as a positive.
Yeah, I don't see how marking, for communication's sake, is any sweatier than the myriad of Halo 5 controls, right? So, I mean...
Yeah, well, there's complaints about those too, by the way. But yeah, I mean, I'm just saying from the community. From the community, anybody who's been on a Halo forum knows that the one thing that that the Halo community knows how to do better than probably any other community is complain. So it's there's always something to address in that regard. So Jesse, real quick, I think before we move off this and into the grenades, I did just want to come back to you because you mentioned some things that I think were really interesting. Because I think a lot of people do compare it to the Battlefield, the Battlefield mark system, and I think you pointed out some differences there. Yeah, I think out of all of us here, you probably played, I think, a good balance of both games, a lot. So you have a good idea of the similarities and differences, and there's a lot of differences between these games. But is there things that you saw that you actually think are better, or I mean, maybe even other games should try to steal, or you think that this is just something that's good for Halo, and maybe it's just the right tweak for that?
It's tough. It's still a small slice of everything, and getting to see both how it works and how it feels is going to be a big part of it. I know not enough of what I've played, especially like Battlefield, hasn't really had a clamber that works. I guess it's more of a balancing. So they're going slower. Halo is faster. You climb way faster in Halo. You also have like a suit of armor. You're not just a regular soldier. For the most part, it feels like a good balance. A little less powerful. A little less powerful compared to Apex's mark system, which can almost go essentially across the map. And Battlefields, where you can just be a guy who can always mark everyone. If you're a recon and you shoot a flare in the air, or you have a pair of goggles and everyone's always marked if you're looking at them. So for something this smaller scale, having to have the skill to specifically mark one person at a time, especially in 4v4 or when you get to the 12v12 on big team, it's a very good balance of, if I do things right, I know where this person is, but there's still plenty of ways for them to get around me, and I don't have to constantly be looking at the minimap to see if it says I'm spotted or not.
Right. Yeah. Right. No, good feedback. So I definitely want to continue to go into the balancing the sandbox aspect. So there's a few things we saw here, and I think we got a little bit clear idea of. So in previous shows, we talked about how this Halo felt like it was kind of walking a line between classic and modern, and it was taking maybe the greatest hits of Halo 5, Halo 3. Taking some different and bringing some actual new elements to all of that. So we got to see them, running around the map, sliding. We got to see like how long it was taking them to kind of come out of sprint. I did notice some things. So I just want to throw this out, and we don't necessarily have to do a full roundtable on this, but what were some of the things that really I want to see like what things really stood out to you. Does anybody want to like volunteer some of the things within the sandbox that really kind of were the most important to you, or what you think might be the most important to the community from what we saw today?
The pistol isn't unbelievably overpowered, and you want to actually use other guns.
I don't know if that's my favorite, but
I mean, I think the trick there is to make sure that the pistol isn't too underpowered.
It should be a really good quick take someone out. Like you can pull it real quick, you can hip fire them real quick from close, and that would be a good situation instead of being a jack of all trades.
Yeah, like if you got a pistol that you can bust out a bunch of rounds to possibly damage enough shield that you can finish them off with a melee, something like that.
It's your quick pull out when you've got one last hit, but you've run out of ammo, right? You need It needs to have some versatility, but not be OP.
Yeah. So did you guys think that the Halo 5 pistol was OP?
No, I thought the Halo 5 pistol was.
I liked it, but anyway,
really good.
Forebear, I saw your eyes. What
no, I mean it's an awesome utility weapon, really, and I think the biggest problem that the Halo 5 pistol has today is that there isn't another weapon since they made the changes to the battle rifle in 2016, 2017, that nothing competes with it anymore. And I think that I think Halo Infinite's already set up really well to be a game with a very quickly shifting meta. So I'm hopeful that nothing stands out for too terribly long at any given time. But as long as there's not one obvious answer to solve every problem, like the battle rifle has been for a long time, like the pistol was in Halo 5, I think it's fine. Honestly, today that Needler was disgusting.
We're watching it now. That
would just lock on, never miss a shot. Like, hey, kiss your mom goodbye, kid. Like, you're never gonna see her again.
As a fan of the Needler, I'm down for that.
Clearly the engineers were too. So
because they've been trying to make the Needler work for game after game after game to varying level of degrees, and this one hopefully they nailed it.
Yeah, neither's always been an interesting weapon to me too. And it was funny, they spent some time to actually focus on the neither. They said that in this tech preview, it's going to be something we're going to want to use, and because the bots are actually having a hard time with it. That's always been interesting to me because you go back to like the original classic Halos, the neither could be an important weapon in the campaign, but sometimes it was just useless in multiplayer. I remember we played with the guy once that he made a song about the neither. Too bad there wasn't YouTube back then. But yeah, it was just we used to have like a neither round, and it was just so frustrating to to try to use that against other people that could actually move and dodge it and things like that. Whereas when you were playing the campaign and they would, they didn't know that you were shooting them with the neither. You could just load up and create a big explosion that would take out other people. So I am curious if they're going to finally get that balance right, and it's probably going to go back also into some of this. I think part of it will be the AI, balancing that between the two, campaign and multiplayer. But what other things for me? Yeah, I'm watching them right now and seeing how they're using the pistol. Pistol is always been one of my favorite weapons when it's working right in Halo. So I hope it's still very useful. Anything you saw from the weapons? I know you mentioned Forebear grenades don't have the hit markers, but that's only in the competitive, right?
So we'll see it if those who are eagle-eyed enough, who have watched the footage enough, or maybe just noticed it on original watching. Right here, actually, this player throws a grenade, gets a hit. You see the hit markers. Quinn Del Hoyo, who's the lead Sandbox designer, did get on Twitter today when someone complained about it, which I'm unfortunately kind of in that same camp. I think grenade hit markers are lame. I think hit markers in Halo are lame in general.
Yep.
If only your enemy players glowed when you shot them. Maybe who knows? Maybe something for the next game. But
no, they do in this.
No, I know. I'm totally being sarcastic.
Oh, sorry, way over my.
No, you're totally fine. You're fine. It's one of those things that Quinn Del Hoyo said that in competitive mode, so HCS, ranked arena play, there will not be grenade hit markers. So social play, I imagine big team battle, it'll be present there. And I hope I don't take any credit away from anyone. But something interesting of note also is that you can only wield 2 types of grenades at a time. The player switches out his 1 spike grenade for 2 plasma grenades at one point because he already has frags. I think it's an extremely interesting choice in the Sandbox that any Halo game that ever offered more than 1 grenade type, or more than 2 grenade types, allowed you to carry as many of them as you wanted to at any point in time, or rather whatever variety of them you wanted to at any point in time. It's interesting to see it limited a little bit more, maybe try to keep that grenade spam down as much as possible.
I do have to say we have already hit our threshold for saying the word sandbox. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, Jesse's been trying to ban
challenge
the word,
accepted.
I think that's impossible. What other synonyms are there for sandbox that you want us to use, Jesse? I just don't. I don't understand how you want us to solve this problem.
You get to
regarding the whole hit marker thing. I'm hoping they give you the option to turn it off, because that way, if I have the option to turn it off, that's my choice. And I don't consider that a detriment or anything like that. But if I want to make that choice to potentially have that held against me, then I'm okay with it. I think that obviously it's there for visual feedback, and with what Forebear was talking about, the glowing bits when you got hit, that's plenty of visual feedback right there. I mean, I think that's the one thing they got absolutely right when it comes to the hitting, when you get a shot on, or when their shields pop. The visual feedback and all of that is excellent.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it is. It's a lot better. It feels like for me, I need some sort of feedback because I have terrible internet or inconsistent internet. So I need to know if my shots are registering today, or if they're not, then I need to go play Dark Souls or something. But all right, but I think that there's some really good points there to for the Sandbox, and it does sound like there's going to be some options, and I think this is going to be a chance to transition into some of that. Before I do transition, was anybody waiting to say anything on?
We got a super chat.
Yes, and I think this is actually going to be a good transition too. Eternal Umbra with the $10 super chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey guys, I was impressed by the preview. So there are no assassinations at launch as they're going to fine tune them. But what do you think about them being done in the first person perspective? Pretty good question. I know that
satiate my bloodlust to really just see me take a life out right through my eyes.
Well,
that was
specific.
Let's keep moving on from that one. All right, so who here leaves their assassinations on? Anybody?
I do accidentally. Like I'm only reminded about it whenever I accidentally do it.
I do.
All right, Daniel. So maybe you can feel a little kinship here with the Eternal Umbra and the fact that they're not going to be in there. And for people that don't know, the developers that talk about this, and the reason they're not in there right now is the trouble is balancing it with competitive play. If you have your assassinations turned on, yes, they're really cool to look at, but they put you at a disadvantage. Usually when you're assassinating somebody, you're open to, getting shot yourself. And, that doesn't happen when you turn them off. You can kill somebody pretty quickly with a melee and you're done with it. And, there's less time for people to kind of take advantage of you being out in the open like that. So, Daniel, what are you heard about this? Are you worried about whether these assassinations are going to come back or not? What was some of your thoughts regarding what they said on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not hurt by it. I mean, it's one of those things that, at this point, I would rather have everything working as it should at launch. I would rather have, 90% of the people be happy. And if it's a reduction of one function or feature, that's fine. The thing that I always liked about Assassinations is similar to Executions and Gears, because I play a lot of Gears as well, is that, it was a cool way to kind of, exemplify some braggadocio, but it was also a risk. It was like that, it was just another element of strategy, not a necessary one, but one where that if you decided to do it, you had to say, okay, do I want to take the time to do an assassination and put myself at risk for the sake of looking cool? And, so many people doing that and putting themselves in harm's way was one of the nice things that I liked about it, because it gave me more targets for people who were just, trying to be dicks. So
it is nice. It is a nice way. And it's, it's something that goes beyond like teabagging, like a different way to express yourself. And there is a risk versus reward. Like I've never turned it off, probably because when I've done it, I've enjoyed when it worked in my favor.
So for the rest,
boinking. So
well, they're talking in chat about how it should be like the glory kills in Doom, and I'm all for it.
That's what I was going to offer as well.
Instantly, just bat or just pop a head right off.
Totally down.
Split second kills.
I'm curious. There's that moment in the multiplayer trailer from the E3 showcase where you see the multiplayer Spartan pull the Hamlet with the oddball, and I'm wondering if something like taunts would be replacing assassinations at launch. I'd be surprised if that was the case, but something that would be fun, like you guys said, to kind of replace teabagging, or maybe not replace it, but accent it in a nice way so that it's even more personal. Like, oh yeah, okay, you're so cool. You have the oddball. I gotcha. Cool.
Well, I think what people like about them is that it is kind of like the equivalent. I don't know who here watches, basketball, but it is like the equivalent of dunking on somebody, right? Like you just get it's not just 2 points; it's 2 points and making a statement. So it'll be interesting to see how they incorporate it. I think they're trying to balance all that stuff out. I know that, and this is kind of going back to what we were just talking about before with, some of the Sandbox. I've noticed that they have tried to balance out some other aspects based on feedback they've received before. Even like the sprinting versus, shooting. It's like you go into shooting mode really fast, right? So they're definitely taking a lot of these elements and trying to figure out how to balance the competitive with with making you feel like a Spartan and making you feel cool. So, but yeah, I understand everybody's. I understand the feedback on that and wanting to be able to still dunk on people in some way, and it does have a little bit more impact when you're able to do that. If they could do that, but more within the flow of the gameplay and put you less at, less of a penalty, a competitive penalty to do it, I think that would be interesting. So it does sound like they're still working on it. So to answer Eternal Umbra, I do think that. I do think that putting it in the first-person perspective could be an interesting way to do that. They didn't really allude to anything about that. I think that if you probably could, you might be able to do something that's a little bit more within the flow that way. But I guess we'll have to wait and see on that. But kind of on that note, so they did talk a lot about customizations as well in the game, and there's a lot of different areas where we can focus on customization. Customization could be another word that gets used as much as Sandbox here, Jesse. So I don't know. We'll have to think of some synonyms to make you happy there as well.
Dress up.
So, and actually, Jesse, you kind of pointed out something. Are you ready? Or are you still playing with your cat?
I'm always ready, bitch.
I think you caught something in the menu, right? So. Like I mentioned before, we talked about them trying to find this fine line between the classic and the modern, but they did still mention the fact that they're still hearing from the different segments of the community, and they specifically alluded to Assassinations in there, right? They talked about the fact that they were hearing from people that are not happy those aren't in there. And I play with a lot of guys who, even when we play as a team a lot, they still like to keep them in there. They want to have that satisfaction of doing that. They also mentioned Sprint, which tells me hey, we understand, we're still hearing you. There's still people that we know if you've been listening to YouTubers for years, there's still a segment of the community that's just never going to be okay with Sprint being in Halo, and so they alluded to the fact they're still listening to them. I think, Jesse, you caught an interesting detail when they were going through the customization menu that I don't think any of us actually noticed. So we're just going to trust you on this. But yeah, I'll let you kind of delve into that, and then I think we should come into start talking about what we think the stuff could end up meaning. So Jesse, over to you.
One, because there was a bunch.
At
27
minutes and 37 seconds.
Well, now Daniel stole your thunder.
Thruster.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jesse. I was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. The thruster is, they don't have the repulsor in there, at least for this build, it seems like, but they do have thruster in there. The repulsor is the one where you can knock back things, hurt people, or do a boosted jump. That wasn't listed in the key bindings, but in the key bindings there were drop shield, threat sensor. My cat's trying to jump. There she goes. Friggin' thruster and Christ, what's the last one? Grapple shot. So there were those four that were shown for being rebound on a keyboard. So it is interesting to see that thruster lives in some form.
Yeah,
I wonder if it'll be the 4 wavy thruster, or if it'll be the 5 quick hitter one.
Yeah, that's a good question.
As long as it keeps me in first person, I don't care. I think Halo 4's thruster is incredibly jarring.
It is. Absolutely.
Yeah,
it looks really cool, though.
What did you guys think? What did you guys think about the thruster in Halo 5? You guys are most of you pretty happy it's gone here, or is it?
No,
is it something?
I hate it. I loved it.
Okay. I loved it. I was very surprised that it's gone here. I thought it was universally loved. I must have been wrong.
Blame people like Proven.
Yeah, I loved that it made all the elements of movement in 5 made you feel like a Spartan more than any other game, in my opinion. So I don't know. I dug it.
You mean you don't like it in the books when they talk about how they're slowly walking and then they do a floaty jump and they're unbelievably slow? Oh wait, no, in the books they're always super fast and do cool shit.
Exactly.
I will say that I'm so sorry, Mike. You go ahead.
No, go ahead.
if you guys pay attention on XboxEra in the coming weeks or so, you'll probably get more of an explanation from me on this. But I do think that it tends to create a bit too large of a skill gap, just for like just in the sense of mobility. I think that Halo 5 has this crazy skill gap just based around its mobility, and I think a lot of the root of that is thrusters, which is a huge bummer because I love the thrusters.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand why they're gone. Especially as they're trying to reach a wider audience. But, that doesn't mean I like it, which I did. I appreciate it greatly. But, kind of like what Austin was just saying, like my wife can't play 5 without her Elite controller because, having those back paddles makes doing things like thrusting so much easier.
I like the thrusters, but how do I make it? How do I make this sound? How do I convey this? It kind of made the gameplay a little exhausting, if that makes sense. Like there was just a lot to keep in mind. It's like maybe if I had an Elite controller and I had the paddles and stuff to help with that, maybe that would help with that. Like to make it more intuitive. But like I used it when I remembered it, but like it's just there was a lot to kind of keep in mind during the middle of a firefight that I never properly acclimated to, I think. And it just I like it. I like the idea, and it did make you seem like a very maneuverable tank, but I wouldn't have minded if they stayed, but I'm not bothered that they're gone. Is my way of like it for me when it comes to like the movement in a Halo game. As long as the base movement speed is fast enough, that's what I always really cared about. I don't care, like I can take or leave sprint, I can take or leave booster. As long as the base movement speed is fast enough for me, then that's really all I care about.
Jesse, I think there's a couple other things what do you want to add to that?
Yeah, there was one other thing that was in the key bindings, which was a toggle for having it resume sprinting after certain actions. And they didn't say what those certain actions are. If it's sliding, if it's reloading, like what type of stuff is it? So that'll be interesting to find out and see exactly how it works. So if you're running, you stop running to reload, and then you automatically start running again, that would be something pretty different.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just add something really just quickly to the sprint thing, and I think the kind of the theme of the day is, and I think we're going to be talking about this a lot over time, is customization. And Halo's always been one of those games that's been known for having customized playlists, giving the community a lot of options. That toolbox to create different modes and tweak the game looks like it's growing a lot, and I think we'll find. I bet you we find out that's going to translate to some other aspects of this game. Over time we're going to learn that as well. But for right now, just looking at what they were showing in the when they're going through the PC options, I think that should lead. I think that should create some optimism within the community. I do have friends that I play, Halo 5 with still, multiplayer. And like I said, I put a lot of hours in that. I like both classic and modern. So I'm maybe one of the weirdos. You see a lot of the, debates online where people are like one or the other. I like both. I can play both. It really still feels good to me in both ways. I do understand, like, from the guys that I do play with, some of them were bummed out that the thrusters were gone in there, because to them it adds like this element where it makes it feel like a fighting game. You can do reversals basically a lot easier, by boosting at the right time and things like that. But when you start seeing that being an option in there, to me what that tells me is you can make that mode. And if that mode is popular enough, if that community is big enough, why wouldn't they have a playlist for that over time?
I'm so sorry.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead and hit that.
They made a mention during the Sandbox Ask 343 about whether or not in multiplayer you'd always have a grapple shot, because they had already said that you would in campaign. In campaign, you always have a grapple shot on you, and you can pick up separate equipment items as well. So Quindel Hoyo had said something along the lines of, it is certainly within the game's capability through custom options, through custom games, things like that, that you can set up games to have, a grapple shot with unlimited recharges and the ability to pick up more than one equipment item. So I think just to reiterate what you're saying, Abe, is that the idea that we could potentially have playlists, or even like a Halo 5 throwback weekend playlist,
Exactly.
where you have a thruster and no other equipment items, and it plays just like Halo 5 did. I think that's totally possible.
Yeah, and that's the point I've tried to make to my friends even since last year. I'm like, why would this community is going to be so big? It's free to play. It's on PC. You can even go cross-play with controllers on PC. It's eventually going to be out on the cloud. Eventually, this community is going to be enormous. You have the bots in there that you can throw in there for, to balance things out. If you want to do 4v4 with 2 bots each, I mean, that might be a thing you can do to just play around, right? There's going to be a lot of that's going to really open up the amount of playlists you can have in here, and the amount of playlists that even become. Oh, go ahead.
Don't forget
Jesse.
Forge. I imagine Forge is going to be something insane. You're going to be able to build exactly what you want, and not just like the Battlefield way, where I bet you they have similar, because they have bots, and Battlefield has bots. Battlefield has a logic editor and stuff because they have bots. So if Halo Forge has something even remotely similar to that, the types of missions and multiplayer modes and stuff you can make is unfathomable for how other Forge modes in Halo games have been. So I think they are going to go crazy with options and just keep adding to them as they are doing the live service.
And they've told us that too, right? No, go ahead.
I was going to say, with the tool set, I mean, I the past 3 Halo games have had some sort of throwback hopper, either permanently or from time to time. I don't imagine, like you said, Abe, and like you said, Austin, because of the massive amount of people that are going to be playing this, I do not imagine a world where they don't have at least, like you said, a weekend where it's like a Halo 5 or a Halo 3 style throwback. But I wouldn't be surprised if we get some sort of permanent or like quarterly rotating, as with the seasons, we get playlists that are set to those rules. So you have thruster, or you have no equipment, or you have, this and that's modified. So.
I mean, and there's always custom games too to fall back on. I mean, they've always given a lot of customization options and stuff when it comes to custom lobbies, and as long as you can get enough people together, you can. I'm sure you can recreate whatever play style you prefer at that moment.
Yeah, and I do think, Mike, I get that point. I do think, to just think about the people that are complaining while you're speaking right there. I think a lot of them would say, it is different. It is different going from custom games to having something that's constantly there in a match
officially supported.
No,
so they want the rankings. They want the rankings. They want the matchmaking aspect of that in there. And I think to Daniel's point, if things are going to be popular enough, you should end up seeing consistent playlists in that, right? Like, why wouldn't you? With this community being so much bigger, again, I have to keep reiterating that. That's why to me, like, even the combination with PC was very exciting. It opens up, a lot more people customizing games, a lot more community. I think this is, and as long as they can, filter based on what you're using, which they say they will, as long as people don't cheat around that. I think that's going to offer, and that'll be another topic, but I think that's going to just offer a lot of options to have permanent playlists that are supported, that do bring people that are still playing. The modern game still gets played a lot. For people that were on my playlist that I made friends with, early and when the game released in 2015, there's still people playing it now. I say 2,000 hours. There's people that have had me beat by a good amount on my playlist. So that Halo 5 was very sticky in terms of its multiplayer. It may have turned off a lot of the OGs, but the purists. But it is very sticky. It is something that that people still really like today. And then obviously we know the classics, the MCCs. We see that now really. It's regained relevance, and people are playing that regularly. So there's no reason for them, with all these different options, not to figure out ways to support all those communities. And I feel like today, I don't think this is just me being hopeful. I feel like today when they were talking, they kind of set the table to try to without making any specific promises, they try to set the table to let us know that, hey, we're hearing all of you, and we are going to try to to work with all of you. So that to me was an exciting thing that they discussed, and hopefully there'll be less crying from the community but probably not. Probably not.
No,
That's
that
just
is super optimistic.
That's something I should hope for. Now I know we've been kind of running a little bit long on all these things here. The customizations, those weren't the only things, but they did talk, also how you look in terms of the Spartan aspect, and we did talk about this on previous shows. But I just want to just open it up. Was there anything that stood out to you today that we didn't touch on before that you maybe think is something you want to highlight for for the audience, or that you were excited about?
I like the fact that I'll be real quick, Dan. I like the fact that the bots don't become superhuman. They just become as strong as a player does. Instead of they're weaker, they're a little weaker, and then they're as strong as a player. They're not like super powered and they kill you in 2 hits. So that'll be a lot more
Dark Souls.
Yeah, it's not Halo 5 Legendary, but in multiplayer. So
HP, all of that it's all the same. Values and everything across the board. Players have the same amount of HP as Marine bots, as the same amount of HP as Spartan bots. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Didn't they say that those are going to scale too in terms of AI, or did I miss that aspect? I thought there was
the HP stays the same. Everything stays. It's just the
AI. I mean, doesn't the AI kind of?
Yeah, they're dumb and barely move. They're smart and move a bit, and then they're really good.
Yeah,
there's
There's Mike.
Mike A. proven.
All right.
What were you gonna say, Dan? I cut you off.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna talk about the customizations that they showed the armor hall and the weapons bench, and I think the vehicle bay, and then your like AI modification so that you can your AI partner. It was just really like, as a UI guy, like it was very pretty. It was cool that it's very intuitive. And when they went into the character customization, they've talked about how this game is going to have more Spartan armor customization than any other Halo prior. And I mean, it very much looks like that's the case. I mean, you can, I can't remember the guy that was on with Sketch, but he was talking about how his sister works with a company that provides prosthetics, and so you can assign prosthetics to any of your limbs. You can customize each of those limbs. You can get different under armor, undersuits. You can get, and then all of those can be, applied a different shader. I mean, it just looks like, when people were freaking out about the friend and foe system and red versus blue being gone, like, this is why. And it very much seems like an earned change, especially in today's world where everybody wants to do, nth degree of customizations, and it just seems like they're welcoming and celebrating that. So yeah, it's really cool. And then the fact that they're all in 3D, like high res 3D models. You can look at all your weapon customizations from within the weapons bench. You can look at all your specific Warthog shaders and all that kind of jazz within the vehicle bay. It's just really well done, and I think it's going to be pretty limited during the tech preview, obviously. And they said that they're going to give you a bunch of credits so you can automatically go and get the things that you want to try out. But I think it looks great, and it's a welcome improvement, I think.
Just to quickly tech onto that, like I was very impressed. Tom French, everybody that was in the multiplayer review was like, the multiplayer Spartan, your Spartan is you in the Halo universe, and it was super cool to see them hover over the body type today, and it not be male, female, or even masculine, feminine, which a lot of different developers are going towards these days. The less gendered and more kind of general, less specific, but like it was a slider, and they went through like 3 options before they scrolled down to the next option on that menu, and like that was super cool. I cannot wait to make my Spartan just like bubbling, like muffin tops hanging out of his Spartan armor. Just like, give me my fat Spartan boy, and like I'm there for it, man.
Yeah, I'll make my pre-COVID Spartan and my
Yeah.
I want to have Master Cake.
Yeah, dude, Master Chef, like, oh god, please,
right.
yeah.
It's gonna be fun to see what people come up with now, especially since it does come with you in the in the multiplayer now. No, that's not red versus blue. We're gonna get to see Mr. Muffin Top, out there, and he will really, all those customizations should hopefully stand out. What did you guys think about that, by the way? Do you guys like how they've implemented that? Moving
yes.
from red versus blue.
I think the only thing that I don't like about what we saw today is that when you're dealing damage, and like this is such a nitpicky thing, is when you're dealing damage to enemy players, that their shields flash red because of the outline system, I imagine, rather than like the traditional yellow. But I'm sure it's something that I'll get over, or maybe even can customize
Just
myself.
make you can change
Exactly,
the color and
exactly.
make it yellow.
My only, I guess, concern or maybe slight disappointment, it's just like what Austin said, it's a slight nitpick. I think it was either the E3 or the post E3, like the multiplayer deep dive. I mentioned about how hopefully this means that we're going to be able to hide in the shadow more type deal, because in Halo 5, like, you're highlighted. The lighting doesn't apply to your character model in multiplayer. You can be in the shadow and you look like you're sitting out in the sun. And that's, obviously a deliberate choice so that you to make it more even when it comes to competitiveness. But I was hoping that would have changed in this. But I'm afraid that this highlight system is going to make you stick out in shadows and stuff. So that's going to...
If you're very close, it does. If you're far enough away, you don't immediately highlight, I don't think.
You do, but it's dimmer.
Yeah, it was way less when you're pretty far off. But also, campers wear Pampers. So get out of the shadows.
Well, I've never been a camper, but like,
but I'd like to try.
Yeah, like, it's just, like, I like the idea of there being a like that, because that would in a way help widen the skill gap, like making everything very general and appeal to everyone. I think is good, but to a point, and just allowing the environment to affect the flow of the combat more, I think is a positive overall. But I'm honestly open-minded to it, and I'm curious to see. I'm going to wait until I play it before I really like. I'm not, even if it's as bad as I think it is. Not that it's going to be bad, but even if it's how I think it's going to be, I'm not. It's not the worst thing. It's just something that I guess it's just going to not be how I thought it was going to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess it's worth taking keeping an eye on and seeing how that plays out. The one thing that does kind of reassure me is that they've worked so closely with these competitive teams. And maybe that's the wrong attitude to kind of have with that stuff, but I do feel like the fact that they have been working so much with them, that they're going to get feedback on things like how easy it is to spot somebody over time, and is that stuff that's adaptable. They are getting all of that, so I have faith that that stuff, hopefully you do get used to it, or it doesn't interfere too much with the overall gameplay. But all right, so I that's my thoughts on that. Did you guys want to say anything else about that, or do you want to move on to a couple other things? Jesse, I think you had one other thing you wanted to bring up regarding some of the
they had another like shadow information drop that they just quickly went over. It's that theater mode is back. Don't know exactly how, but that it is back.
They told us theater mode was coming back in one of the Inside Infinites previously.
Wow.
But
it is confirmed because it's in the UI, but it's not going to be in this tech test. It's just it's in the UI, but you can't click it.
Okay. The most interesting thing that we saw in that UI. I'm so sorry, Jesse, to step on you there, but was the event timeline on that you could toggle in theater mode. So it seems to me like what that reads like to me is things like players picking up a flag or capping a flag could potentially be checkpoints through that theater timeline. So maybe it'd be easier to go back and pull a cool clip from something that happened, or maybe even track, when you were getting kills throughout that free for all match you were playing, or something along those lines. But very cool. I'm excited to see what cool stuff theater has.
I really hope. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm hoping that it comes back for campaign.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. That'd be huge.
I've missed it so much.
Yeah. I mean,
the
multiplayer is amazing. Don't get me wrong. I'm happy that it's at least we know for a fact it's in multiplayer. But I hope, I'm right there with you. I hope it comes back for the campaign, because there's so much that you can do with that. I'm just so happy that that's back. That was a highlight for me.
Yeah, I mean, and it makes so much sense, right? It just never, it doesn't make sense why that wouldn't, especially in this day and age of social media and sharing stuff.
Exactly.
I mean, you could just see that, and with this Sandbox now, it looks like it has more dynamic possibilities than any other time in this franchise. So yeah, it makes sense. Jesse, did you want to add anything else so we can take turns stepping on you?
No, that's pretty much it. I'm happy it's back, and if you ever step on me again, I'll find out. It's impossible not to step on people, even though Skype's latency is pretty good, but...
I totally messaged Abe, and it was like, Jesse's never going to want to do this with me again.
Okay, compared to some of our other guests...
Let's move. All right, guys, I'm going to kind of move these conversations forward. All right, I think we're almost covered everything. We talked about the customization, the aesthetic things, in the PC. They did talk a little bit about Battle Pass again. Again, this isn't something that I'm heavily involved with. I know we did talk about this in previous shows. Did anybody want to take that? Was there anything that stood out to you that was new information or something? Again, we talked about what we thought this was and how it was going to mirror MCC before. Any new revelations today?
I mean, basically, all of our predictions about how it's mirroring MCC is very, very much the case. I mean, the UI almost looks identical, just spiffied up and everything. And I don't know. I think they constantly reiterate the fact that you can go back and buy the old ones, and like that, especially after seeing so many of these other season pass type games get that pushback about FOMO. It's just welcome, but there's nothing really new. I don't think that they covered today, unless I missed something.
All right, cool.
No, I think that it was the first time we got to see the challenge swap in action.
Oh yeah,
which was something that leaked as a part of like Butterfinger marketing like 8 months ago, where no one had any idea what it was. Like what is a Halo Infinite consumable? Things like that. But it was cool to see, like, no, legitimately, this is all it is. It's a cool thing that you get for free in the Battle Pass. If you get a challenge, you're like, I cannot hit anything with a sniper rifle. I want a different challenge. They swap it out and give you something else. And the one that he got instead was like complete 2 matches of Strongholds, which is like far more doable.
Right. No, those are some good points, because that's one of the reasons why I've never been a Battle Pass guy, because sometimes they just give me a bunch of things. It's like my gaming time is valuable, and I'm here because I want to do what I like to do. I don't want you to force me to turn this into a job.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why I've always just said no to it. I do like what they said, and that's at least me and Mike, we've talked about this before too. Neither one of us have been, Battle Pass guys. I'm at least open to it this time, because it does sound like they are taking a lot of my complaints into consideration. Now, whether they can execute on that always is a thing to remain to be seen. Really, really good points on that.
Swapping out the challenges for me is huge, because that's outside of the FOMO aspect, being forced to, knowing my OCD, being forced to do things that I don't care to do just to hit some kind of challenge, and allowing some level of flexibility with that. As someone that's never been a Battle Pass person, I can't believe how much they're nailing it on the Battle Pass in this game, I gotta say.
Because they pretty much, they could do whatever they wanted in MCC, because they were never charged for it. So it was just this full on, what's the most fair way we can do this? It's going to make people give us an extra $10, $15, whatever ends up being every 3 months or so, and they don't have to feel like they've got to get it done in that time, or Like I'm going to buy the new one because it's got a few things I want. So I'm going to work to those, get those, and go back to the other one and do it, and go at my pace. I can earn it from everything. The global system in Master Chief Collection, where you can gain stuff never touching campaign, you can gain stuff never touching multiplayer, is the best possible one. And it's just everything about it screams, we are so hesitant to have anyone angry at us ever again that we are just going to be the most fair giant mega corporation you could ever imagine on Earth. Because the pull-in is Game Pass for them on everything in the end right now. They want everything to be a reason to get you into the Xbox ecosystem to sign up for Game Pass, which is still a very good deal for you. So, I'm starting the free-to-play multiplayer. I really like it. Man, I really enjoy playing this game. If I sign up for Game Pass for $1, I can go play the game. Oh, okay, now I've got all this other stuff. They don't have to nickel and dime you on this very specific, shitty monetization system that pretty much everyone else uses.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that this is, we always talk about how Halo is at its best when it's not trying to be everything else, right? Mm-hmm. And while this is not necessarily gameplay related, this is a clear example of that. And I'm hoping that the rest of the industry takes this as a lesson to start doing the same thing going forward, because I don't know the numbers. I'm sure Microsoft does. I'm sure Respawn and some of these other companies do, but I would imagine a system that reduces FOMO, that reduces the need to like, when you remove FOMO, you remove burnout. You remove people who, like, I've stopped playing Apex Legends for over a year almost, because it felt like too much of a job, and there's so much, you had to grind so much just to get a single item. And this is hopefully an industry standard going forward. So.
And these are really, really good points, Daniel, especially with the Xbox community, because obviously Xbox community means Game Pass community for a lot of us, right? At least a huge portion of the people that are involved a lot. And because of the Game Pass aspect, people want to have, I think you're hesitant to take on too many games that are going to be jobs, right? And so that's the kind of key, is like, how do you balance that stuff out there? How do you keep this continuing to go, but also don't make it something that's going to require you to give up everything else in the meantime. Exactly. The Game Pass balance is always going to be interesting, because unlike what a lot of I think a lot of the fears are, you don't want every game to be everybody's life, because you don't need a subscription service then. So it'll be interesting also to see if they can incorporate benefits with that. And so we haven't heard any hints on that. So I guess that would be something
there's going to be like a Game Pass Ultimate perk. I wouldn't even be surprised if it was something like the first season.
I mean, nameplates, even like something small. It doesn't have to be anything special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there will be a ton of perks from Game Pass Ultimate.
The muffin top customization. I was saying the muffin top customization exclusive to Game Pass.
All right, edition. Yeah, let's do it. I'm into it.
All right, guys. A couple other things. Obviously
Master Beef.
Master Beef.
We didn't get a chance to really talk too much about what we saw visually and things like that. And I know we're running long here, so I don't want to spend too much time on this. But yeah, well, yeah. So let's really quickly touch about the visuals. So we saw one map, but it was done on the Xbox One. I don't care as much about the Xbox One because I don't need to. But
it's interesting to see because we had never seen it before.
Yeah, it is interesting to see. So, any thoughts about that? About some of the maps we saw, the visuals, or the sound? Because like Eternal Umbra actually asked, "Did you guys like the sound of the Needler? It sounded punchier to me. Not sure how I feel about it yet." So we did get more of a feel of the look and the sounds of this game. Anything could jump out to you guys in regards to that?
I think the battle rifle sounds way better than it did in Halo 4. Like I don't even think it's comparable. I think I do like it more than I liked it in Halo 5. The one weapon that I'm curious about that I know we've heard multiple times now that I just need to listen to more is the assault rifle. Specifically, I was playing Halo 2 Anniversary on stream earlier today, and it sounds like a nail gun. Like, it's so loud and powerful, and I don't necessarily think that that's a good thing. I think it's a little overboard, so I'd like to, get a little bit more familiar with it. I thought everything that we saw looked fantastic. I think the Xbox One is doing a fantastic job of handling this game. I was a little surprised at how good it looked. Some of the volumetric lighting that we saw, some of the dynamic stuff.
You saw the shadows, though, man. Oh, they're so bad.
You can't see my eyes roll right now.
But no, like, I hate to say that it's all praise for me, but I literally have one nitpick, and I'm sure that I'll say it by the end of the show, and it has nothing to do with the game's visual or audio fidelity.
Okay, cool. We'll definitely want to come back around on that stuff. So some things that we want, they're even, that we're still keeping an eye on, right? I guess maybe that's the best way to say that we're still not 100% sold on. So real quick then, Mike, any thoughts from you? I know you're our Parallel Pixels, lead, and you take a look at a lot of the resolutions, the lighting, things like that. Anything jump out to you about the Xbox One, or then the other version that was on the final version was on the Series X, correct?
Yeah. Right. The Xbox One, it looked just about as I'd expect. Like it. Okay. I mean, compared to what we're used to now, I don't want to say it looked rough. Because it doesn't. Considering the hardware.
What it can get to.
Yeah, considering the hardware, it looked good. I think it looked good. There's just certain little things that stuck out to me was like, I didn't know if it was...
texture resolution.
Well, yeah, even the texture resolution looked pretty good considering that. But like I don't know if it was artifacts from the game or artifacts from the stream, but I wouldn't be surprised if it uses like a checkerboard rendering or a reconstruction. Because some scenes looked a little messy. But if you look at the Series X, the footage that it kept on standing out to me, there seems to be more like environmental debris from like explosions, running around when your bullet reaction.
The particle effects were massively greater in quantity.
The particle effects just were kicked up a notch. And granted, the maps were different. So maybe that, the market that's in the Xbox One it's a lot of like cement or concrete, whereas the the battleground or whatever training ground and
live fire.
Thank you. Yeah, for the Series X, it has a lot of dirt and stuff like that. So it does give more opportunity to have that type of debris, but. Yeah, it all looks really, really good. There is a definite gap, like with what Daniel was talking about, the texture resolution. They look much, much sharper on the Series X. So like, it looks good. Like I'm for something that they seem to preemptively temper expectations, saying that because in the Inside Infinite blog post they said that it was rough. It has some rough edges or something, that the way that they described it. It looked better than I expected.
It just means that the release build is that much better looking already.
Oh, yeah.
Worked up.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
And this makes me even more excited for the campaign, because as good as the multiplayer is going to look, we all know that the campaign is where the real like visual feast is going to be. And so the one thing in both the one thing I'd like to point out in both the Xbox One and obviously the Series X is there doesn't seem to be the same level of distracting artifacts that we saw in Halo 5, like especially the shadows. Like the draw-in for the shadow detail was really close, even on the 1X update. And there was nothing that was that eye-catching or distracting in the Xbox One footage, which is a big improvement to me.
Yeah, go ahead, Daniel. I know you've been waiting to speak, and then I'll say something. Go ahead.
I was just going to add on to Mike's point. I'm sure he would agree. Like one of the biggest impacts to a game's appearance is its lighting, right? And I mean, obviously, the Series X, the volumetrics, the light shafts, the real-time reflections, considerably greater. But I was actually pretty impressed on the one, just how intact most of those components still were. I mean, obviously, definitely, scaled down. I'm sure some of the light shafts were quarter resolution or something like that. But overall, I was actually impressed with the kind of the showing for the Xbox One. After seeing Flight Sim on Series X, anybody who had any doubts on the capability of the hardware should probably leave them at the door at this point. But the other thing that non-graphics related was Bazaar and Livefire showed a greater diversity in level design, both aesthetically and from a construction standpoint, than I think most of the maps made by 343 from Halo 5 were. So, so that has me very hopeful for seeing what their other maps will be, at launch. Because I think regardless of what you think about Halo 5's multiplayer component, I think most of us do enjoy it a lot. But the map design was always one of the greatest complaints, and justifiably so. And so I think people watching the tech preview today and hopefully this weekend playing it will kind of get an idea on if because I can't remember if we saw a recharge or not. But
not today.
That's right. Okay. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how that map looks in place. Because it's like I said, I'm pretty hopeful based on the fact that neither of those maps played or looked like any of their previous designs. So it's clear that they took some of that feedback to heart too.
There's a lot of like personality there that was missing in a lot of the Halo 5 maps.
Yeah, Bazaar looked like outskirts from Halo 2.
That's exactly what it reminded me of. Yep.
Yeah,
100%.
It's like you can see they had more time to actually go in and touch everything up, and it's not so forgified.
Are you saying that you don't want another midship?
That's gonna probably
or another Blood Gulch, like them are fine.
I will happily take those.
I want a Blood Gulch.
Like call back.
100%. Please not at launch.
The one little thing I'm probably reaching with this,
probably
but
will be. Yeah, go ahead.
But it's stuck during the character customization. I don't know if it was just a really nice cube map or if it was ray tracing, but when they're showing the visors, you can see that the reflective properties in the visor, like it looked really good. It looked beyond what you typically see in a Halo, custom. So I don't know if that was maybe a preview or of what their ray tracing is doing. But even though in the past I've said I think ray trace reflections would be a waste in this game. Doesn't look like there's a lot of opportunities for it. Looks like ray trace global GI. It would probably be a better use of that technology. And that's of course assuming that ray tracing is going to be there at launch. I mean, we know that they said that the original launch it was going to come post launch, but I would hope that with the extra year that would mean that it would make it at launch. So
it's something I've been wondering about too. Mike.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, that's what I took from that too. Is it kind of reminded me of Forza Horizon 5's ray tracing in Forza Vista. I wouldn't be surprised if we have full ray trace reflections in Armor Hall and Weapons Bay and all that kind of jazz, and then it's applied to in different applications in campaign and multiplayer.
Yeah,
because you said, it makes sense to have visor ray trace reflections in cinematics, right, where you're actually seeing your character, but not so much when you're playing because it's a waste of resource.
Yeah. I have a real quick point on kind of what we saw there, and I think the first thing to mention is the developers, like you were saying, Mike, did kind of pre-position things that hey, this build is 2 months old. they're going to continue to improve it up into the end. And I said this last year in July. Somebody who's one of my buddies is a developer. He's developed for a couple decades, and really the last stretch is there's usually a lot of enhancements made to visuals and optimizations. So keep that in mind. They want to make sure they put together a visual package that is running well now. So and as they get more optimized, you're going to probably start to see more details. And even going back to the Halo 5, when they demoed that, or they ran that through the beta, many in 2015, we saw kind of a considerable jump between that and what we ended up playing at the end of the day. And then also same with the Gears of War, right? Like we remember the complaints about remember all the screenshots.
Yeah,
there's a lot. So, and yeah, this has been an extra year in development, but you're still going to see when they take the way those pipelines work, when they know they have that time, that's always the last step, is this optimization. So keep that in mind, people, in the forums and everything else. When when we start talking about the visuals, this is still this gives us a nice idea of kind of the look and feel of the game, but it's not necessarily the fully optimized, what we're going to get in terms of the final look with the shadowing and even some of the detail level. Then the other thing I did want to say, and I think this goes to some of what you were saying, Mike, about the campaign and some of the possibilities. What I've liked so far visually from everything we've seen, going from even in the unfinished campaign to what we've seen, that we saw last year that was a little bit rough, to a couple of these maps that we've seen, is the variance. There really is. There is a lot. I am really encouraged by the different variants in terms of the environments, and seeing them from an outdoor environment to the indoor. That bazaar does feel a little bit, to me, like aesthetically, it feels a little bit different than what you would normally expect in a Halo. And just kind of seeing some of the possibilities, especially as this game is going to continue to be, it's going to continue to get add-ons. It's going to continue to get DLC. It's got, campaign and multiplayer. A lot of promise there. And we did have a question from the chat about the Forge, and we haven't had any details. I am expecting there's really not a lot we can say about it right now, but yeah, there's going to be a Forge, and I would expect that, just as we've seen everything else taking evolutions in terms of what the franchise allows in terms of customization, you should expect to see some of that stuff make its way over there as well, and that'll be exciting once we can delve into that. And we're looking forward to we're looking forward to that being unveiled.
The interesting thing about the whole Forge is with their lighting model, because it's not so static. That's going to make, like, the Forge maps are going to look a lot less flat than they have in the past.
Yes.
It's, and if they do implement something like a ray trace GI, that would just make that would help cement, I guess, the items that you place down look even more natural, not so much out of place. There's a lot of potential there.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. Any final thoughts on graphics, and then I think we should try to do a little wrap up.
I really hope, but I don't expect them to actually put up the footage in 4K. That would be nice.
Yeah. The fact that it was all streamed.
They're going to let us do it tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to
preach.
and on that note, for anybody that's part of the community watching, we do got some messages here at the end, so stick around to the end, even though we're getting close to sign off here. So any final thoughts, you guys, based on everything we saw, kind of just final roundtable, and then we'll close out a couple things for the community.
I had the one, again, it's such a nitpick, but my biggest complaint about what we've seen from the game itself so far is one of the things that I love about Halo is the medals. I think especially in multiplayer, they're a key part of it. Yes. Everyone knows what it feels like to get your first overkill when you sit down to play for the night, all that fun stuff.
Yep.
And I'm really liking some of the direction they're going in. We heard the perfect medal from Halo 5 is back. We saw that, heard that today. I love that they changed the snapshot to no scope. I'm excited about a no scope medal. It's easier for newer players to understand what that means. I hate where in the size of these medals in the Infinite gameplay, they're tiny, tiny little things like 2 inches to the left of your reticle. What is that about? Like, I'm totally fine with them giving us, I think it's an XP breakdown, basically. Like, every time you get a kill or get an assist or anything like that, it's off to the left of your reticle. But like, put my medals down above my radar. Like, I don't need them to be like these tiny little things that I can't see, that I have to go look at my PGCR to see at the end of the match. That's my only complaint with what we saw today.
There's no reason those can't be where the kills are, off to the left. Right. And I've never been a fan. I'm right there with you, Austin. Like, I've never been a fan of anything that puts something near your crosshair, especially if you like, you know,
even match.
Yeah, like, I mean, kind of like, even for a fraction of a second, if you need to veer your eyesight slightly to the left, you know, that can affect how a firefight goes, and especially for fighting more than, you know, if you just kill someone and then seconds later you run into someone else, and
I'm sure that you guys touched on
it for feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you guys touched on it at some point when we very first saw gameplay a few weeks ago. Sorry, I haven't watched every episode that you guys have put out just yet.
Get out.
I told you.
Shame.
But like, it feels like something that they reversed after Halo 4 was to get the text away from the center of the screen, and they just like wouldn't put it back again, man. Like, to be fair though, I like this way more than I liked what they did in Halo 4, but like, I'd prefer just to not be there.
Yeah.
That's good. Some good points. Anybody else have any final thoughts? We covered a lot.
I cannot wait for tomorrow.
Yeah,
it's gonna be so hard to actually work.
I wanted to take the day off Friday. I was like, PTO. Man, I'm looking at my load. But you know what? So on that note, you know, I guess my final thought is I'm actually really looking forward to seeing all the clips that are going to come on Twitter, all the clips from the community. I'm really excited about some of the potential of this game because of how dynamic it looks like it can be. And so to kind of build on that, you know, for anybody that doesn't know, and you should know by now, you know, being part of XboxEra, we do have some, you know, pretty lively forums, and it's growing. A lot of people on there. We definitely want to start incorporating the community more, and even with our future shows. So, you know, if you over this weekend, obviously we were going to save this for when the game actually launches, but over this weekend, you know, if you have some really cool things happen, you know, save your clips, share them with us, come over to the community. If you haven't already joined, just go to XboxEra.com and, you know, sign up to become to be part of our forums. Look for the Halo thread, put your clips in there. I do want to bring our next show, kind of highlight some of the best from the community and from us, some of the cool things that we kind of experienced. And
our site founder, Sika Mechanico, has talked about wanting to gather a bunch of clips and make a really cool video.
Yes, and he's very good at doing that, by the way. So, you know, get your stuff featured. We're also, if you see us, you know, again, come to our forums and reach out. Like, if you know, we do like to, you know, bring the community into our parties, and you know, and I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity there. So we look forward to getting a chance to play with you. If you are newer to XboxEra, we do have a Patreon, and just to kind of to expound on that, everything that's been invested into our site goes right back into that's invested from the community, goes right back into our site, into tools. We're doing some really cool things behind the scenes right now for the community. Can't wait to share more on that really soon. But our goal is to continue to make this the best place for people who play on Xbox, who play on Game Pass, who play Halo, to come and hopefully we add something to your experience overall as part of the community.
Can I tease something, Abe?
Yeah, go ahead, Jesse.
If we hit 1,000 patrons, I will do everything I can to get a special Ed body pillow made. Special Nick.
Oh my God.
I promise. I will try my best.
That sounds like a threat.
If we get 1,000 patrons simply because that many people want a special Nick body pillow, come on.
All right, guys. I think
that's it. Real creepy.
Yeah, way to end on. We were doing so good today. I felt like our creep level was really good, and we almost got out of here. And then I think Jesse realized it. All right, guys, is that are we good? Anybody else have anything else?
I think real quick, not that you didn't already say it, but like not just cool clips. Like send us weird, wacky, silly, like, game-breaking bugs. Like anything that you think is interesting from this tech flight, please send it to us.
Anything that brings a smile to your face.
Do a good, bad, and the ugly. Yeah, 100%. Also, thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, it was great having you on.
Yeah, you can't come back until you watch all the other episodes.
Fair. It's what, like 25, 26
I gotta be honest, they started out pretty bad, so it's a really tough assignment. We got.
Oh yeah, they only got great when I came on.
Oh man. Well, everybody, thank you for staying with us. Thank you for chatting with us, and we look forward to seeing you in the forums over the next week. We may be back here. At least some of us may try to get back here next week to talk about some impressions. So look for that, and we'll
probably have some streams too. We'll be doing streams, probably like myself and Mike and John wants to do one.
Yeah.
So keep an eye out for those.
Yep. Awesome. And then look out for Forebear is going to have a pretty big piece coming out here soon. So I'm looking forward to everybody getting a chance to see that. But thanks again, and everybody have a great weekend playing Halo.
Bye, guys.
Stay safe.